My name is Avery Taylor, and today I'll be bringing you the most disappointing player from every single MLB team so far this season. If you enjoy this type of content, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and let me know down below who you think the most disappointing player in the MLB has been so far this season. I did want to preface this by saying I did try to avoid injury-riddled seasons as much as possible. For example, in the case of the New York Yankees, it's really between Josh Donaldson and Luis Severino. Josh Donaldson, I took off the list just simply because he hasn't been on the field very much. Only around 30 games. He's really just been plagued by injuries all season. Whereas on the Luis Severino side, he has 18 starts. He has an ERA above 6. I think that's enough of a sample to say he's just been disappointing. You look at it, he's given up over 11 hits, career low in strikeouts per 9, career high almost in walks per 9. Just really been terrible across the board and been plagued by the home run ball as well. Next up on the list is a guy that pretty well defines what this video is all about, and Tim Anderson of the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox season has been pretty forgettable, and he is one of the main reasons why. Going from an all-star in 2022 to having a below 600 OPS in 2023 is never something you want to see, and for a guy that's always has a high average, hitting at 237 so far this year is just not something desirable from a player that also plays bad defense there at shortstop. Next on the list is a failing prospect type in Vidal Brujan of the Tampa Bay Rays. He's currently hitting 178 with a 250 on base with a 205 slugging, giving him a 455 OPS. That's just not going to cut it, and that's why he's only played 36 games so far this year. He's accumulated somehow negative 0.3 WAR and negative 0.4 FWAR in that time. So really just a not great season for a guy you are hoping to take that next step. Next up on the list is starting pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies, Aaron Nola. He does this thing where he's good one year and then terrible the next, and right now he's in one of those bad years. Currently with a 4.64 ERA, giving up over 8 hits per 9 inning, but the big killer for him is walks. Last year he got that down to 1.3, but now he's jumped back up to 2.2. That has led to his FIP being at 4.2, which admittedly is better than his ERA, but he still has taken that step back that we all did not want to see him take. For the Atlanta Braves, it was kind of difficult to find a guy that was really underperforming so far this year, so I went with middle reliever Colin McHugh. He's been a solid reliever for each team he's played for the last few years now, but this year he is sporting a 4.3 ERA. His home runs, hits, walks, and strikeouts are all headed in the wrong direction, and hopefully we're not seeing the tail off of his career. Next up is every Pittsburgh Pirates fan favorite pitcher in Roansy Contreras, who really has taken a step back here in year 2. He actually has been designated to the development list and then to AAA there soon after. Contreras currently sports a 6.59 ERA with a 5.19 FIP, giving up a career high in hits, home runs, walks, and striking out a career low batter. He's really not found that form that he had last season, and he's not finding the swing and misses that he used to find with that slider and fastball. 2022 was the first season of Javier Baez in Detroit, and it couldn't have gone much worse. He had a 671 OPS and only hit 17 home runs, which, barring the COVID season, would be his lowest amount since 2016. But surely he'd bounce back in 2023, right? No. He's at a 581 OPS and only has 8 home runs through September 12th. With Trey Turner leaving the infield in Los Angeles, the Dodgers were looking for somebody to supplement some of that production. And they're hoping to get that in Miguel Vargas. That really didn't happen. He has a 672 OPS and an 81 OPS plus. You saw them try to grab Ahmed Rosario, as well as bring in some other guys during the trade deadline just to try to boost that production. And realistically, he did not fit the bill that they needed. The version of Colton Wong that the Mariners got this year was not the same Colton Wong that he has been for the majority of his career. For much of his career, he's been a defense-first second baseman who's had a serviceable level bat to keep him in the lineup every day. But this year, his bat turned atrocious, only having a 468 OPS, a 165 batting average, giving him a 33 OPS plus. Like, he was just unplayable, and eventually the Seattle Mariners cut ties, leaving a goring hole in the middle of their lineup. And he wasn't even there for their defense either. His defense was pretty middle of the pack from a second baseman standpoint, so it was really tough to value him and keep him in that lineup every day. And eventually, he made his way to Los Angeles out of the Mariners' hair. Madison Bumgarner has not been the same since his move to Arizona. But in a make-it-or-break-it year, there was some optimism that he would help turn around his career this year. Well, that's not the case. He had a 10 ERA through 4 starts, only pitching 16 innings, and had given up 13 hits per 9 innings, and was giving up an astounding 8 walks per 9 innings, while also striking out career low batters at 5.4. Overall, Madison Bumgarner was not the pitcher that the Diamondbacks were looking for, and eventually cut ties with the veteran pitcher. I hate calling out young prospects, especially those that are still in their rookie year, because realistically they haven't had the MLB level time to really make adjustments and become better players. But whenever you think about the number 7 overall prospect in baseball in Grayson Rodriguez, you would like to have seen a little bit more from him with a 4.88 ERA over 20 starts. He's striking out 9 batters per inning, which is good, but he's struggled with walks and home runs so far up to this point in his career. Overall, he should help this young Baltimore team take that next step within the next few months or within the next few years, depending on how long it takes. Over the offseason, the San Francisco Giants brought in Ross Stripling to help with some of their rotation depth, and he hasn't really provided quality starts. With a 5.29 ERA across 11 starts in 19 games, he's only pitched 78 innings with a career high in hits at 10.5, also walking 1.3 batters per 9 inning, and is really struggling with the long ball with 2.3 homers per 9 innings. It has not been the season that everyone wanted and expected as Giants fans out of Ross Stripling. For the Guardians, it was tough because they got rid of a lot of their poor performing players at the deadline. You think of Amed Rosario, Josh Bell even, and that's who I went with. He had a 233 average, 318 on base, 386 slugging with a 701 OPS, giving him a 95 OPS plus, which is just slightly below average. And you're not paying Josh Bell to be a defense first baseman because he's just not that. But the sad thing is he went to Miami and instantly turned into a good hitter again, which he does go through streaky periods like that. But it is just frustrating to see, especially whenever you're a Guardians fan, whenever you see him perform so poorly for your team. Entering this season, Byron Buxton was considered one of the top talents in baseball, but injuries have always plagued him beyond compare. So to alleviate that, the Twins decided to put him at DH, and somehow it turned him into a worse hitter. Only sporting a 97 OPS plus, meaning he's slightly below average, is a 207 batting average, 294 on base, 438 slugging, giving him a 731 OPS. If you're going to get that out of Byron Buxton, you might as well stick him in the field and hope he stays healthy because his defense does play. One of the few good things that was supposed to be happening with this Rockies roster is that Kris Bryant was supposed to be there matching home runs and being a good everyday player, and he hasn't been that. He's missed over half of the season so far, and even whenever he did play, he only had a 251 batting average with a 337 on base, 377 slugging, giving him a 713 OPS with an 86 OPS plus. Overall, just not a great season from Kris Bryant. It's probably been his worst since 2020, which again was that COVID-shortened season, and even then he missed some time due to injury. With very little to play for in 2023, the Nationals were just looking to see some sparks from some of their young guys, and that includes Keibert Ruiz, the catcher formerly of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Ruiz has not taken that step that we would like to see him take as a true hitter. He has gotten a little bit unlucky based off his batted ball data, but at the end of the day, he's still not getting the results that he should be. With a 257 batting average, a 310 on base, and a 412 slugging, giving him a 722 OPS, which gives him a 99 OPS plus, which is pretty well right on line with being an average hitter. That has to be better because he is a terrible defensive catcher, and you cannot be a terrible defensive catcher and be an average level hitter in this league. For all intents and purposes, Manny Machado is having a disappointing season that a lot of people would dream of. But for me, whenever I think of Manny Machado, whenever he finishes second in the MVP voting just last season, putting up over 30 home runs, hitting over 37 doubles, I expected a bit more from him than what he's doing so far this year. His OPS has almost regressed a full 125 points. His slugging, much of the same. Everything is pretty much regressed across the board, and it's just not the same Manny Machado we're used to seeing out there. MJ Melendez is another one of these guys that you would have loved to have seen taken a step in this year number 2, but he just simply hasn't. He's at a below average rate in terms of batting with a 234 batting average, 308 on base, 393 slugging with a 702 OPS, giving him a 90 OPS plus. He also is terrible in the field, and whenever you're those two things, you simply cannot be an everyday player, so hopefully he can step it up here in year 3. When the Houston Astros signed the former 2020 AL MVP and Jose Abreu, they were not expecting the outcomes that have so far happened this year. Jose Abreu is a well below average hitter so far this year, playing at a position that doesn't really provide a lot of value in the field either. He currently has a 236 batting average, 297 on base, 364 slugging, giving him a 661 OPS and an 81 OPS plus. He also has only hit 14 home runs and 77 RBIs. This is a guy that's finished in the top 20 of MVP voting each of the last 4 years and so far hasn't even scratched being a league average hitter. Jose Abreu needs to step up if the Astros want to make sure they have a good, strong push for the World Series crown. Speaking of disappointing first base DH types, let's talk about Rowdy Tellez of the Milwaukee Brewers. So far, been kind of the same fall from grace. Went from hitting 35 homers last season to so far just 13. Also saw his OPS drop almost 100 points, and it's just not been the first baseman that the Brewers have really hoped for. They need a guy that's going to be a consistent bat in that lineup that provides a little bit of pop, and he just hasn't been there. You've seen them go and grab other first base talent, such as Carlos Santana at the deadline, just to try to supplement his poor value that he's been giving them so far this year. After having some nice performances with the New York Yankees and Tampa Bay Rays over the last couple of seasons, the Boston Red Sox took their crack at Corey Kluber, hoping he could provide them some depth in that starting rotation, and he hasn't done that. He has a 7 ERA over 9 starts, only pitched 55 innings. He's had to be relegated to the bullpen in some instances, has really struggled giving up home runs at 2.8 home runs per 9 innings, also struggling with walks and only getting 6.9 strikeouts per 9 inning. Just an overall collapse of a year from Corey Kluber, and it's really a shame that we are seeing the downfall of this pitcher after the highs he experienced in Cleveland. Tyler Anderson was another guy that was brought in to supplement a rather poor rotation in Los Angeles, and he just hasn't done that. He's kind of regressed back to his old form before he went to the Dodgers last season. Has a 5.36 ERA, he's pitched 136 innings across 24 starts, had a couple of instances out of the bullpen as well, has a 4.89 whip, giving up 9.4 hits per 9 innings, 1.3 homers, 3.9 walks, and only striking out 7 batters per 9 inning. So not a great season by any standard from Tyler Anderson, and he's not the middle of the rotation guy that you would have liked to see behind Ohtani whenever he was signed. Brett Baty's another one of these top prospect guys that you would have loved to have seen take another step this year, and again, just hasn't happened. He has a 209 batting average, 279 on base, 314 slugging, giving him a 593 OPS and a 64 OPS plus. He has a negative 0.9 WAR, and so far has not been the top prospect that the Mets would have liked to see, and a overall poor year from the team. If the Cardinals knew this was the Adam Wainwright they were getting, they would have told him to retire. With a negative 2.5 WAR across 19 starts and an 8.19 ERA with a whip close to 2, this is not the Adam Wainwright that we know, especially after having such a great late season resurgence over the last 3 years. Maybe, just maybe, he should have went into retirement with his boys and Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina. Last season, we saw a bit of a breakout from Martin Perez, earning his first All-Star appearance and finishing the year with a 2.89 ERA across 32 starts. But this year, he returned to form with a 4.74 ERA, a 5.23 FIP, whip close to 1.5, giving up 1.5 homers per 9 innings, and really struggling to get strikeouts. This year has been a year to forget for Martin Perez, and an otherwise really exciting year in Texas. The end of last season in Houston was rather disappointing from Trey Mancini, but the power numbers were still decent, so there was still hope whenever he signed with the Chicago Cubs that he would return to form. That didn't happen either. He actually somehow lost the power, but ended up getting on base at a better clip with a 234 batting average, 299 on base, 336 slugging, giving him a 635 on base, and a 71 OPS plus. That is a well below average hitter, and for a guy that's not necessarily known for playing the field that great, that's just unacceptable and really disappointing from Trey Mancini so far this year. Tyler Soderstrom is another one of these guys that I feel bad putting on this list just because he's so young into his career, only played 32 games. But boy, he has struggled for an Oakland A's team that needs any reason to cheer and have fans at the stadium. A 156 batting average, a 229 on base, 260 slugging, and a 489 OPS makes him a 40 OPS plus type of guy, which is nowhere close to where he should be over the long term of his career, but so far, it's been disappointing for a guy that has negative 0.9 WAR. What happened to the guy that finished third in the Cy Young voting just last season? Everybody's been talking about him. He's been well documented, going down to rookie ball, going down to AAA and really struggling, coming back up and struggling again. It's just really sad to see, and he's really not handled the situation well either. He has a 5.87 ERA on the season, and realistically, the Blue Jays could use another frontline starter. That would have been phenomenal to help their postseason push, because who wouldn't like another from the line starter. From 2020 to 2022, Sandy Alcantara was one of the best pitchers in baseball and cemented that in 2022 by grabbing a Cy Young award. In 2023, that pace has fallen off significantly. He's at a 4.41 ERA with a 4.04 FIP, so you know it's pretty legitimate. He's really struggling giving up hits this season, as well as those hits doing damage in the form of home runs. It hasn't been the same version of Sandy Alcantara, and he is dealing with some injuries as of late, so hopefully he can get back just in time for the Marlins postseason run if they make it there. Speaking of postseason runs, let's talk about Tyler Stevenson of the Cincinnati Reds. By all means, Tyler Stevenson is having a fine season. He's close to league average hitting with a 255 batting average, 333 on base, 387 slugging with a 720 OPS, giving him a 93 OPS plus, which is league average, and he does play a decent catcher. But whenever you think of people trying to lead this team, this should be one of the guys that should be on your board. He is historically a better hitter than what he's showed so far. Last year in limited time had a 133 OPS plus in his rookie year. Again, really limited time, but had a really good stretch of games there. And even last year, or even in 2021, had a better season with a 106 OPS plus. So historically, he is a above average hitter, just not showing it so far this year. As always, thank you guys so much for watching again. Let me know who you think's been the most disappointing player of the whole season, whether for your team or just in the whole of MLB. You let me know. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy.